Hi, I'm Richard Wheeler, and this is Richard Wheeler Works. Wasn't quite working there for a second. For all of you who may actually watch this at some point, I'm here to tell you that this is not well, it's easy, but it's complicated, right? It's not complex, it's complicated. There's a lot of little parts and a lot of little setup things in your computer, in the software, hardware, software, network. It's the whole thing. Um, Obviously, children can do it, so it has been made so that you, dear listener, dear watcher, could probably accomplish it. But it's not necessarily like intuitive. Yes, children can do it. Also, children have nothing to do but be children frequently, and they don't have like a full time job where they have to, write memos and check emails and things like that. Oh, to be a child. So, anyway, hi, I'm Richard Wheeler. This is Richard Wheeler Works. This is a Twitch stream where I work. And what we're still doing here feels like it's been a minute. It hasn't been that long though. If you ever, so maybe some of you out there manage work, manage projects, and it's challenging to do time estimating. I'm listening now on tape. I'm listening to an audio book of Cal Newport's "How to Be a Straight A Student," which you might think is a little redundant if you've looked at my LinkedIn profile and see how many degrees I've done. But I do find it fascinating because I'm interested in general in studying and learning. And boy, why did I bring this up? I'm reading like another Cal Newport book at the same time in print, so I'm getting his advice a little mixed up. Um, it's about the time that goes into getting things done and working and estimating and understanding. Like, well, is this really a 2 hour task? Is this a 6 hour task? Is this an 80 hour task? Um, it's challenging. I'll remember what I was going to say about Cal Newport in a second. Maybe not. But you should buy his new book, A World Without Email. It is good, and it is different if you have read previously, let's say, Send or The Tyranny of Email, books from about 10 to 12 years ago, which address the proliferation of email. This is, some insights now that we've had yet another decade of email, and also some insights from somebody who's a scholar of work and how we work. So, back to our project, ongoing project, a part of the If I Could See What You See project, which is an open source surveillance pedagogy project, right, where we're trying to understand how to make and use a instructional guide materials for a course, things like pedagogy. Look it up. I need to clearly because I can't explain it clearly. But and using so open to all, sort of sense some of the senses of the word open source that come from the world of software creation, and then also open source in the sense of open source intelligence or open source information, which comes from the world of intelligence gathering and analysis. So we're looking at media, open media, YouTube, Instagram, the Googles, all of it, and trying to make sense of military intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance practices, specifically more the surveillance and reconnaissance. And we've been looking at material from 473 Sphinx Special Observer Post Battery Training. It's a United Kingdom unit, part of 5 Royal Artillery, that had a unique Cold War mission and has continued to have unique missions going forward. And they are covert surveillance experts. And what we're looking at is information about constructing rural, covert, subterranean observation posts, right? Remember, there's 3 things. There's covert, rural covert, surface, rural covert, subsurface, and covert urban. Right, so we're looking at subsurface. So let's see where we're at. We're at a blank screen. Hold, please. Where was that thing again? Oh, wait, maybe I just don't have that. Oh, there it is. Thank you. All right, so we got a list here. We've got 46 images we've sort of identified. This is using Google reverse image search. Remember, taking an image from 473's Instagram post and putting it into Google and seeing what we find. And we're going through and trying to find the links, right? Level 0, maybe I'll put a little bit of shading in here. That helps. Level 0 is the first level. Just in programming, we're thinking the first level is level 0. And we were here inside this in our last hour. Sorry, that was an old professor of mine. We were looking at this print from the close observation platoon of 2 para. Remember, we left off here with this patch. We didn't quite get through all this. We were looking up the what does this mean in Latin? Videre sed non videri, and it means see, but not be seen. And remember, we're just looking at this kind of like first cut page. We're not looking at if we go here to see more, just to remind ourselves how Google reverse image search works. Right, many more images here, and also in a different order, which is a little maddening, I think. Is that? Yeah, look. I mean, yeah. Remember, part of what I'm trying to figure out here is level of effort in going through this material that's not really, it's built to draw us in. It's not necessarily built to be useful to us. And so how do I go in and make sense of this to support my fact-finding mission, right? Is it worth going through what we have here? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. 60 images, can be more, remember, versus 4, 8, 12, right? So there's 5 times as many. Is it worth it to do that, or just do this first cut? I don't have an answer for you. All right, so we were here. We saw this before. This fellow, I'm going to close this down. This fellow, right? This is a news story about an ex-soldier offering his expert surveillance skills, which is useful because I don't know if you remember, but or if you weren't here before, I was mentioning that I did a course a few years ago with some former forces folks, and pretty sure that in hindsight they were 473, or one of them was. Interesting, yeah. A couple years ago, all cagey about where they were. Now the unit has its own podcast. Things change. Things change very quickly. That's part of what my project tries to make visible, is that, and this may be controversial to some to quote this person, but former head of the PLO, Yasser Arafat, is famous for saying one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And that is true in and of itself, but also it relates to the old idea, one man's trash is another man's treasure. We were talking about dumpster diving in a previous uh, episode. Which one was this? There we go, 16, 17. It's how you can learn a lot, to see, people have very poor discipline. Organizations have very poor discipline about throwing things away, and that can be an advantage if you're trying to. So this, if you're trying to find out information, this doesn't have any links to anything, but in and of itself is interesting, right? I want to know about this guy. Because here's the thing. Let's go back to this. This is from last year. Okay. Darren Wilson. Let's see. Let's see if he's on LinkedIn. Uh, 700 plus Darren Wilson profiles. Well, that sounds like a lot. Sign in here. You can learn a lot on LinkedIn. Definitely learn a lot. You can learn a lot because people will tell you a lot of things when they're trying to get a job, right? By the way, it is actually mildly cold here, which is why I'm wearing this jacket. I know. For those of you who know I'm in California, you're like, how? What? It's 48 degrees Fahrenheit. I can't do the conversion to Celsius in my head. Sorry. All right. So let's. Darren Wilson. And let's go to people. And let's go to locations. Where did it say he was? From Kendall. All right, let's just say United Kingdom. 526. Yikes. Private Investigation and Surveillance Agency. All right. Current company. Private Investigation and Surveillance Agency. Okay, that doesn't. Let's get all filters here. Past company. I don't want the. U.S. centrism is so rampant when you look in these systems. British Army. Oakley dokley. Not finding that there. Reset. Just do a Google search. Ah, there we go. back in England, see if he's done any. Eight years. Northern Ireland. Skills and endorsements. Time management, reconnaissance, military. That's funny. Surveillance, interpersonal. So, ways I use this are as follows. I look at so what they did, the same thing, not a lot here, right? Private soldier, the rifle platoon, layer reconnaissance platoon, window joining close observation platoon, brigade surveillance. Skills and endorsements, people can be endorsed by others, and that can be useful. Darren here is not, but you can find sometimes, figure out somebody's network and other people who work in the world by looking at who has endorsed them for what. Interests are interesting sometimes, right? In this case, not particularly. Maybe. Not seeing anything. Well, the solicitors, because he works in private investigation. Makes sense. Okay. And then sometimes you can also get some interesting, useful insights by looking at who else this is people also viewed, right? So Phil Jones here, who's he? Is he a competitor? Is he a friend? Keith Robinson here. Not Heath Robinson, Keith Robinson. Marie S. Entrepreneur, actor, producer, rugby, barista. Okay. Anyway, this didn't go into anything that I was super excited. This didn't get very far, now that I'm thinking about it. Not a lot here about Darren Wilson and his network, 225 connections. Don't know if he has any courses either. Did it say he was doing courses? Skills. Course, no. Training, no. So he's just doing it. He's not teaching you how to. I mean, you could always try to hire him. All right. Enough of that. Back on track. Back here. Let's see. So what's this? Secret war in Northern Ireland. Well, how secret is it? I mean, I don't think it was much of a secret. What are they saying here? I mean, Operation Banner went on for like a zillion years. Yeah, this is not a bad book, MRF Shadow Troop. Seeing if there are any books I haven't seen or read. Yeah, no. I think I've. What is this? This is like an Italian. Huh. All right. Nothing there for me anyway. Uh, Man, that's interesting. All these close observation platoon pictures. Yeah, I'll bite on this. Because remember, with paradata, there's a lot of names. So you can figure out who's who. You can start to build a network of information about who is involved. And that can be interesting when you're trying to find, as I think I was mentioning before, um, memoirs and things like that, like we were talking about. All right. Frank Fletcher, Lord Frank Fletcher. A lot of very, very pronounced mustaches here, aren't there? Oh, is this not? Anyway. And then, let's see, Argyle and Sutherland Highlanders. What's that? Why is this here? Does this mention that they... Does this page... Is it just like trolling because it's people being pictured in a unit? And this one... Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Igor is a pretty good nickname, I think. Hmm. All right. Done. Oops. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so this was another company that did training. Interesting. What do we see here? Ghillie suit, camo net, backpack, camera, tripod. Interesting mount on that camera. Some tent stakes maybe, entrenching tool, gloves, like, yard work gloves, construction gloves. Maybe not good to have those in yellow. Not sure there. Zip ties, folding saw, secators, or pruning shears for those of us who aren't in the United Kingdom. Little bits of wire, tarp, Okay, let's see what we got here. It looks like there's a lot of good stuff here, actually. Other training we could figure out. Yeah, it looks like, looks like we might be spending a minute here, folks. Sub Rosa group on Twitter. Yep. I want to know about them. See, remember we were cutting down the amount of stuff that we were uh, getting. Like, oh, we're down to one or two. I mean, every single one of these I'm interested in. Absolutely. Covert Rural Surveillance by Ben Wall. I have that book. It's a good book. Copy image location. $21. All right. Boom. Yep. Nothing interesting here. Just a bad Twitter feed. Oh well. But so yeah, this is Ben Wall's book. Yeah, but I think all this stuff is just going to get pulled in the net because I mean, this book is amazing. Like a lot of what you need to know is in a book like this, and Ben Wall's a former UK military operator with Crops UK, and yeah, I mean, this is basically like you're getting the military training as a civilian. Um, and a lot of what's hard to replicate are the kind of facilities that military organizations have. Like huge training ranges. But with Benoit and Crops UK, they have or had at least this really great setup all over the area they were with agreements from fellow veterans or people in the community who were witting to the fact that they were doing training. So I mean, just all over the place in a rural setting. Really amazing training. Cannot recommend them enough. So this is that other, that's that anyway, so we're not going to do that. Private investigator and covert surveillance services in Northern Ireland. That sounds like a good way to get shot to me. Does not sound like a thing I want to do. You know, the war is over, but people have long memories of it, and for some people, the war isn't over. So I don't know if I'd be going around looking like I was a para regiment or SAS close observation platoon member to me. That I just I don't know. Do you know your mileage may vary? Did I? I didn't mark that, did I? Here we go. I mean, it is interesting to see the things that these former military operators do, right? Insurance fraud, employee sickness fraud. These are two big areas, right? There's a ton of people who fake illness. Right. Well, I won't characterize the number. I will note that this is a business that somebody's advertising that they can work in. It's non-trivial. Somebody thinks they can make money saying they can do that. So now, I mean, we're in this whole UK stack here, right? Um, Neither good nor bad, just observing. But I haven't seen a similar sort of. I haven't seen the same thing with other militaries. You know, close surveillance is a real thing in the UK. I mean, as a capability. Rural and urban environment services, rapid deployment, overt CCTV. So there's some value in these images. We'll go through at a later point and download all of these. Right. Getting some ideas of, like, that's not helping me. Right? It's something with their window, but now I'm starting to say, there's an example of the equipment. What is that? That doesn't help me. Sort of like it. There's a mix of stock imagery and imagery that's like telling me something about kit and techniques, right? Like you can see just to the right of his hand, there's a camouflaged handset from a communications system. it's telling me something there. He's got that, what, an open line. It's just hanging there, so he can keep running commentary. All right. That's useful. So this crop term, right? Covert rural observation post is what we're in. It's a generic term, but you do see people use it a lot as part of their branding. Oh, I do wish I could be listening to music now. But if I listen to music, then and it gets in the feed, then uh, it restricts. Can you see what this what happened here? There we go. This is a picture of, it's a picture of garbage bag. Why is it a picture of garbage bag? This is another thing that these kinds of operations get hired to do. Is the term in the UK is called fly tipping. Where you're illegally dumping non-trivial service. It appears in the UK. You are not trained to be this owl. Ooh. Yeah, fly tipping, environmental crime, crimes against wild animals and wildlife, poaching. Yeah. This is interesting too, right? These are sort of various professional organizations. There could be a whole project in going into these, finding out who the members are, mapping out, the world of private investigations. I feel like I did that at one time in the UK. So, the whole world of that. What is this? Let's go jump right to what this is. Leotech FI. Huh. Yeah. Finnish company that does camouflage systems. There's an Israeli company that does something like this too. I've seen. I mean, there's a lot of companies do this. This is interesting. Personal camouflage systems. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I've seen this before. Urban Sniper Kit. Personal combat uniform. That's interesting. So one of the things we could do here, where we were coming here, is Leotech Urban Sniper Kit. Hmm. Well, all right, we're running into a thing here. Leo means lion in Latin, but LEO as a acronym in the United States is law enforcement operators. So where Leo Technologies helps you hear the voices that matter. No, that's something else. Yeah. This is just not. You'd have to contact them and do a whole thing. I mean, there's another. We could. Hold on a sec. Okay. Images.google.com. Upload image, browse, sniper kit. They keep wanting to give us tripods. Amazon just does not understand my needs. I'm not looking for a tripod. What the heck is this? Wow. This is Syria. Look at this. Holy cow. It looks like, what? Is that a recoilless rifle that they've... Man. That's heavy. Wow. Okay. So we don't want tripod. We want... What if we just do urban here? Yeah, I mean, it knows it's a sniper, right? What did they call this? What if I say kit? No, I get a bunch of... What if... Wow. All right. If I say surveillance? Get a bunch of these terrible stock images. Okay, pages that include the matching image. So, all right, I guess urban is urban surveillance. Is urban. Oh, okay, look at that. Urban Camo Kit, Polaris Solutions. What's barewalls.com? Oh, wait, is this a company that takes stock images and makes like prints of them that you can hang on your wall? This is so weird. Yeah. Just what I want to make my living room feel complete. Pictures of people working in like an urban combat training. Weird. That's what you get with the internet. But this here is exactly the kind of thing we're looking for, right? Uh-huh. So here we might start to be able to start putting things together. You start to look at the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, and procedures. You can start to learn things about how far back do you stand? Why do you stand back? What kind of tools can you use? So just over here, huh. So it's like a tent. This is interesting. I mean, yeah, this is, I've never seen this. This is pretty cool. See, they got this, yeah, it's like a tent. Yeah, and I mean, you see how this one's different from this one, relies on these poles, it looks like. And I've looked at things that rely on, like you can get photo kit that's similar to that, but this is different. All right, off you go. It all came from this, right? Yeah, this is the Israeli uh, company. I've seen some of this before. I haven't seen that. Hmm. Wow, yeah, it's hard to see. So we got 6 left. Uh, got just gonna skip around here a little bit. 19 covert surveillance ideas on Pinterest. Okay. The language of it sort of doesn't fit. Air Max investigations. Western. Are these Australians? This looks like Australia to me. Yeah, it is Australia. Hmm. Why are people obsessed about making stupid acronyms? SOAR, surveillance operations in rural environment. I mean, come on, just ugh. All right, this is the U.S. I think this is California. Yeah, 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 yeah. Uh-huh. So this is an interesting thing that you'll find when you're looking at the training angle of it, of like not necessarily not building training from scratch. Part of this project comes from what I'm going to talk about here is that it says restricted to law enforcement and military personnel only. Not in the UK, not in Canada, right? Like there, one of the things I found when I was starting to look at this stuff was that everything in the US said it was restricted, and then oh look, they haven't run one for like 5 years, and then you go over to the UK and they're like, yeah, you want to learn? We'll teach you. Designed for police officers, sheriff's deputies. Why don't they just say law enforcement officers? Fish and game wardens, park rangers, military units, or any governmental entity. Interesting. Sounds spooky. A lot of people shooting, some people looking. I mean, not very concealed. These are not people who worry about being seen. It just looks like stock imagery from Afghanistan. Okay. Behavioral surveillance training. That looks legit. ISS training. Yeah, this is virtual OSINT training. Spelling mistake. The theory of covert surveillance. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this looks like, it's about, I don't know. Talk more about it later. Looks like it's using pre-bought kit. Not sure about that. But this is one of the major courses you can take. Facebook. All right, so where we're at. We are at... Let's mark that as... Oh! Whoa, we're almost done. Okay, well, we sort of stalled on this because there's so much in it. Let's just take a quick sneak preview of this last one, and then next session we will have finished out level 0, right? I don't know what this is. This is a pain in my neck is what this is. Hold on a second. That in and of itself wasn't useful, but this was more useful. Maybe. Right, because I had this here, Long Range Recon Scout thing I wanted to get in. Oh, we're almost done. Notice all this has been in English. We haven't yet been able to jump over the language barrier. Now, I don't know if that's because of how I have my settings. Maybe. I think this search is already baked in. But, yeah, there's a limitation here, right? Because, what happens is, you were just looking at me looking at things there. Sorry, I was trying to see if I could get up different language results. I haven't. It's just speculation because I'm not like a deep expert at all in how these things work. But, like groups to like, these are all like network analysis problems. They're saying this image is probably linked to this image because it has these characteristics, or people have clicked on this, or they've linked. Like, there are all these ways to weight the relationship between two entities, and then do that amongst many entities, and that's network analysis, right? Facebook is looking at your social graph. That's your social network, right? Google is looking at the graph of relationships between entities on the internet. Like, is this web page related to this web page? Is this picture related to this picture? And part of what I'm interested in trying to do is hop out of, is find these parallel network, parallel, so to speak, right? But like, so if we just go to this here, long range scouts. Hold on a second. Let's just bring this up. Fernspan. Copy image location. Images. Images.google.com. Modify our preferences again to search settings, languages, English, Français, Deutsch. Oh. Mm-hmm. Still a lot of English, not getting even this first result that has from the Bundeswehr, from the German military. It's a result in English. Right. So a lot of work to be done. Ooh, that's cool. Look at that, though. Glad we're on this page. Yeah, we've seen some of these pictures before, but now we know the source. Huh. Right, and this is cool. This has this we have an image of the hatch, how they're doing the hatch. Long-range reconnaissance soldiers have used Hessian matting, translated by a British English speaker, sticks and chicken wire to build a sort of lid. Its top is skillfully camouflaged with heather, so it completely blends in with the environment. That is the entrance to the hatch. The space below is surprisingly roomy. Yeah, I doubt that. Huh. All right, we'll get back to that. I'm going to save that for now. But yeah, just to point out that it's we're still stuck in this world of English speakers. What we want to do eventually is get outside that. We want to look at what's the German army doing? What's the Austrian army doing? What's the Danish army doing? What's the Norwegian army doing? What's the Finnish army doing? What's the, French army doing? What's the Italian army doing? All these specialized units, right? Because each one has its own traditional solution. Like hatch design is an interesting point. The French hatches, German hatches, and British hatches are all different. You'd think it's the same thing. Why do it's all like, these are crafts. These are craft traditions, making traditions. So part of it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And how do you know if it's broke? I mean, this is what we do here. There's a lot of ethnographic, anthropological, archaeological type of work here that you can do. We'll do that work later. This is Richard Wheeler. I've been working on Richard Wheeler Works. See you soon.